Hi, and welcome to Upzone, where understanding politics is made simple. We are your two hosts. I am Tisha S. Waddell, former City Council representative for the 3rd District of the City of Fayetteville, and Mr. Elmer Floyd, former House representative for the 43rd District in the state of North Carolina. Good morning, Mr. Floyd. How goes all?
So far, Tisha, so good. I only got 3 calls this month from my creditors, so of the 25 that I have, so I'm doing pretty good.
And we're 15 days in, so I'd say that's a win.
That's a win for me. Then. That
That's a
now that
win.
is truly a win, and thank you for your assistance in helping me to reach some of them.
Mr.
You
Floyd,
know,
I told you I don't mind taking the cost because the phone never rings waiting on one of your creditors.
well, it may not ring at yours, but it ring at mine. But everything is going well. Everything is going well.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Mr. Floyd, what announcements do you have for us today?
Well, I received communication that the NAACP is going to have their annual Founders Day dinner, and that's going to be on February the 7th. And the doors going to open at 5 o'clock. The program is going to start at 6, and that's going to be at the Fuller Center.
And if
Madam
you want to meet
Waddell,
your candidates for county commissioner, this will be an excellent opportunity because
every
they will be present.
they will be present, and that's about the only time that you will see them. And so, don't worry about once you elect them, trying to communicate with them and get in contact with them. You'll see them there because you'll be on their speed dial. Okay. But Tish, if you could give me some assistance, I mean,
Hmm.
for 20 years, I have asked the NAACP to use a letter 10 envelope and a letter of 9 envelope to send back a 8.5 by 11 response.
Okay.
Did you realize that they send you this in a 10 number envelope? And they, you know how you used to write the little love letters envelopes?
Hmm.
They want you to put a 8.5 sheet in there. So you got to keep folding it and keep folding it so it can drop in the envelope and put your check in there to let them know that you're going to attend. So could you please ask them just to increase the size of an envelope so we
Well,
can put
Mr.
the
Floyd,
eight?
you asking the wrong person
Please,
because I don't have any
please.
dealings with the
Yes,
NAACP. You asking
I
the
need
wrong
your help, T.
person.
Teach, teach. I mean, for 20 years, I have been asking. They send the same small envelope. So could
Yeah.
you? I'm just asking for your assistance. I mean, I
Well, Mr.
tried.
Floyd, if they ever pick up a cause that represents my interests and I get involved with them, I most certainly will pass that along.
Please do that because I mean, I want to participate and I want to send my check back. And it's $75 this year. I want to send my check back. But when I first heard it, I was going into a meeting at the church Saturday, and the young lady asked me did I receive my letter for the NAACP banquet, and
Uh
I
huh.
said yes. I said, but I don't think I'm going to be going because there's a disadvantage for a lot of people to go out on Fort Bragg.
Mm-hmm.
So she told me it would be at the Fuller Center. So I said I would be there because a lot of people are inconvenienced when they go to Fort Bragg. So they changed it
Not,
now to the
but
Fuller.
we're not in that group.
Yeah, but look at it. But the population that attend this are the population that is 40 and above. And so it's an inconvenience for them. Some make a pre-run is to get there, is to go a day or two early so they
Mm-hmm.
can get the pass to come on post.
Yeah.
So it was an inconvenience. So, but they're moving it now back to the Fuller Center. So that's great. Okay, that's great. But also, don't forget now, the Ministerial Council prayer breakfast is Monday at 10 o'clock. And
Mm-hmm.
teach, they have sold out.
And that is another oh, well, too late. I was going to say that's another opportunity if you wish to meet and greet with your candidates and
Oh,
your
they'll be
elected
there,
body.
teach.
That's another opportunity. Hmm.
Grab them when you see them now, because that's the only time that you'll be able to get close to them and communicate them about the issue. Don't worry about a return call. Don't even worry about that. Just introduce yourself, speak to them, and 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 uh, and and keep going. and they have their
Mr.
Sunday
Floyd, it's
pro.
so funny when you say that because I still get return calls, and I know some of these people don't even like me, but I call who calls me. I guess I say it that way, and so I do.
But
When you nurture the relationship, you will have the access. I don't want to throw every elected person into that bucket because
what
if you
teach
nurture the
teach
relationship, you'll have the access, and it's not all
teach
predicated on money because I've not donated to any of these people's campaigns.
I know teach, but you can call them. You know, I can I can recall
But I'm also
calling.
Tisha, Mr. Floyd, but I'm also Tisha, so that makes a difference.
Okay, okay,
but
okay.
you
I just
but
wanted
you
to.
have but you have the same experience. I think the people that don't call
Yeah.
us back are the ones that have a grudge against us.
Oh, that's what it is.
That's what it is. Like if they not calling us back, they got a
Oh,
bone to pick with us. And that's okay.
oh,
That's all right.
oh.
Like,
Okay.
pick the bone. It's okay.
Oh, because I know on this program, we have mentioned what I have mentioned, not you, is that I'm not voting for experience this year. I'm voting for how well I like the candidate. So you can
Yeah, but
talk to
on
me
this
all.
program, I talk about what I don't like about how people serve in their
Well,
capacity, and people don't like that.
well,
They
I'm
don't
just
want you
I'm
to
just
say
vote.
anything. Go ahead.
I, I I just before I looked at experience and the way people communicate that can bring value back to my community and district. But now I'm not concerned about that. I just if I like a candidate now,
That's
that's
your
how I'm
candidate.
stroking. That's my
I
candidate.
can dig it. I can dig it.
Because one candidate said that all of one candidate sign was in somebody's yard, and that was an incumbent. So I
Mhm.
just wanted to see if his 20,000 signs is going to be in individual homeowner yard.
Yeah.
But anyway, don't forget now the election is March the 3rd,
The
and the polls is
primary election. The
pro-
primary
your
election.
primary election is March. It's March the 3rd, and also I think my notes said that the location. They're moving from 8 locations down to 7. The same location that was last time, but they deleted Spring Lake.
Okay.
And the polls are going to be open from 8 o'clock to 7:30. And if you receive an absentee ballot that went out Monday, it must be in by 7:30 on the day of the election.
Okay.
It must be in by 7:30 on the day of the election. So
Okay.
I wish all the candidates the best. I think they're gonna start campaigning. You'll see them at the
Well, we're
polls.
starting to see signs, and I'm generally very um I'm always very interested in the quality of the sign because to me that says a lot about the quality of the campaign, or at least the
Hmm.
messaging in the campaign. And I will tell you, um, some of these signs that I hope their messaging is clearer than the sign.
Well, Teach, I tell you what. See, this is what you don't like to do, and I love to do it. Once I spot a sign, at an intersection,
Hmm.
because of myself. Now, I'm not as king as you. I had to ride by it 3 times to
To
get all the
read it.
information.
Exactly. That's the point.
Yeah,
That's the point.
yeah. I
That is
had
the
to
point.
ride by
And I'll say this, and I
three.
want to say this to any of the candidates that are watching. If you know that you guys are having these forums come up, let us know because I don't get that information. I'm not a candidate in this race, so I'm not getting that information into my email, so I can't pass that along readily. I'm not perusing social media looking for it. I've got other things to do with my time. But if you let us know that something is going on, we will share that with our audience because I believe that our audience should have the responsibility to come and hear what you're talking about. So if you know whether you're a candidate or not, even if you're just a community member who keeps up, shoot us a message on our social media, on the Upzone page or on our personal pages, or even send an email. You can send it to tishafayforward@gmail.com, or Mr. Floyd, if you want to give them your email address, and we can mention that during our announcements.
But and also remind people that if they're gonna have a forum, remember that these are county commissioner persons. not city
That's
council person.
they're gonna
Okay.
ask all the questions anyway. You know that. They're gonna ask them about
I
all
know,
kind of
I
stuff,
know, I know. I
which is more
get that.
appropriate at this level than it is at any other level because they actually do touch everything in the county. They touch everything with the school. Like they have a wider net that they cast. So it'd be a little less inappropriate for them to ask them a question about the schools than it is to ask somebody at the city council level. But
But
I
what
would
about
like for
that,
us to be
Tisha?
able to share that information with our audience. So if you know something that's going on, send it to me, TishaFayForward@gmail.com, or send us a message on our Upzone page, and we'll be happy to get that information out. Mr. Floyd, aside from announcements, we've got a little bit going on in our community that's worth talking about this week. And interestingly enough, it feels like a slow news cycle. But Mr. Floyd, I believe that there's a lot happening in the background that's not being discussed. And I want to just tell you offhand before we or kind of off 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 program, one of the things that I think might be something for our audience to watch is this dialogue or this situation that happened at the swearing in of the Fayetteville City Council, where Dino Hondros was reported to have switched his vote. And there was a debacle about it because Lauren Beimer put out some information to the news outlets saying, addressing this change in vote. And there was just sort of an open ended question that the community was left with, and that reporters are even left with, which is who authorized the press release? Where did the information from the press release stem from? And who is being held responsible for that kerfluffle? I know you're laughing, but this is important, Mr. Floyd, because that was a direct um, violation of the policy that governs the way that the city council works, because you cannot change a vote arbitrarily like that. And so when that went out, it really raised some flags that maybe not necessarily red flags, but certainly yellow flags about policy, process, and procedure. And so I will say that I've heard some rumblings that this is ongoing, that it has not been resolved yet, that is still a conversation that is potentially being had not only in media outlets but also with the management level at City Hall. So I would like to see how all of that shakes out. I'd be interested to see if Lauren Biner is still in his position, within the next 6 months, or if there's some shift in terms of what he's doing or how he's doing it.
Well, Tish, let me say, my experience, it seems like the staff have a great influence on running city government. Okay. Now,
I
I'll
understand
give
what you
you,
mean.
I'll give you an example is one as it relates to zoning, because I have been involved in that area with the city, and how the staff communicate with the citizen. Okay, that's one. But I would say more about that as it relates to how staff communicate with what I'm gonna use the word vendor in this particular point. As it relates to the citizen, that's one. And then the second one
Now,
is
because you started with, I would say more. I want to close that loop. You would say more. However, if you said more, it could potentially land you in a situation because of
yes,
the
yes,
non-disclosure of the content that would, yeah, I know. Go ahead.
yeah, and that
I just want to make sure
communication.
our
So
people know that's why you're not saying it. Is
yeah,
because you came across information that substantiates that staff is working directly with and I'm gonna just use the word people who represent developers in our community. You came across information that substantiates that staff is working directly with them to ensure that they get a leg up in these conversations. And you
well,
came across this information, but you are not permitted to give the details of it because that would violate the parameters upon which you came across this information.
yes.
Got
Now
it.
the second, now the second one was the Murchison Road housing development, the neighborhood choice program.
Let's talk
That
about
one,
that. That wasn't on my list of things to talk about. But you and I have been chewing on that like cows chew cud. It'll go down a little bit and come back up and go down a little bit and come back up because there's something very intricate about this process, but it is very concerning. So
Mhm.
let's and it's not on my list, but let's start there. So Mr. Floyd, when we talk about the what was the project they were trying to do on Murchison Road? Neighborhood choice
That was the
neighborhood.
neighborhood choice program. In fact,
They were trying to
that
get
relation, $50 million.
they they were trying to
$50
get a
million.
grant for $50 million for
Yeah.
revitalization along the Murchison Road corridor. They were working directly with the community members. They were working with the city staff. They were working with the council members. There was this coordinate. There appeared to be a coordinated effort of how they were working. It has since been discovered by us as we kind of sift through this new piece of information when they were denied the grant. Apparently, one of the things that Chris Colley came back, Chris Colley is over,
The development.
thank you, community
Mm.
development. It was denied. Chris Colley came back and sort of gave the information that he was informed that their application would be better if they had a project already in process. So as we see now what the proposal is for the end of the Murchison Road corridor at Catalyst Site 1, we see that this is in response to that conversation. What we have found as interesting is because we went back and we looked at it, and we found that the vast majority, if not all, of the low income projects in our community have been built by a particular builder in our community. That particular builder is, say his name,
No, I don't want to say his name, but it's
Duggins. I'll
J.
say it. I'll say it. I had to remember it. Murray Duggins. Murray Duggins. And this is not, we're not indicting anybody. This is not an indictment. We're talking process because I think it's cool if when you gain this level of information and you are able to execute these projects, I think that speaks well of your career. So Murray Duggins has been in the position where he has built. So, like when you look at the projects, and I'm going to call them projects because that's what they are, the low income housing, what do they call them now? What's the politically correct term for it? Affordable
You said
housing?
for now, please, please, please. I'm just asking you. Please say affordable renting property. They're
Okay,
not
that.
housing, because affordable housing is where at some point in time that family is able to bring about generational wealth. Okay,
Okay.
so they
So these rental properties that have been priced for affordability or are income based on MacArthur Road, on Grove Street, on where's
that's Cameron Avenue.
Old
Yeah,
Wilmington
yeah.
Road. All of these have been built by the same builder. This builder receives, is it called tax credits, Mr. Floyd?
You get tax credit, in order to build that. Let's say that they throw the project out in the cloud, and they're
Mhm.
able to find individuals that would assist them in this project. As an example,
Some of these the majority of the credits that they receive are government based credits. So
yes,
they're using tax dollars to be able to finance these projects. So they have to come to the table with the project, the expertise, the experience. And in order to get these credits, you have to have a certain level of experience doing these projects. So you can't just come in off the street, be a builder, and say, hey, I want to do this. And you have to work in this system. Now, we have been trying to, like, you have to have experience working to build specifically these types of projects using these types of credits. Mr. Floyd, it's a very complicated system. We have been
it's
trying very hard to find somebody who will come on and make it digestible for our audience. We're running into a wall because when you reached out to one person, and I can't remember the name you gave me or the agency, but they were familiar and they said you can take a class about it.
yeah.
That agency said you can come on and take a class about it. Well, we're not looking to take a class about it. We're looking for somebody to help us be able to understand how a particular developer qualifies to continue to get these tax credits, because what's happening is when they build this affordable housing or this income-based housing, they build it, and then how long does it have to stay at this affordable rate before it becomes market rate?
Well, well. once the agreement is signed and the terms from the credit, okay, it may be 10 years, maybe 15 years, and it may be 20 years or 30 years.
After
Okay.
it is built. Once
Yes,
that happens, it has to remain income
yes,
based for a period of time. And then after that, this developer now has, I want you to put in your mind, think about Old Wilmington Road. If you've never been over there, it's a very large apartment community, a very large apartment community. And it's nicely done. It's not shoddy
yes.
work. It's nicely done. The exterior is pretty. The inside of them, even though it's not high end finishes, the inside has decent touches. So it feels like a nice mid level apartment. It doesn't feel like a luxury apartment, but it doesn't feel like you in a garbage can. It's a nice mid level apartment. They will then own these, and they will have been paid for off of essentially tax dollars, because not only are the is the money to build them, and I'm getting this, I'm not clear on the details because it's not a clear process, but the money appears to come from these tax incentives. There seems to be, like, you get the bank money, so the builder doesn't have to put up a big tranche of money to build this stuff. They just have to have the connections and the experience. So they are building what you have identified as what, Mr. Floyd?
Uh, generational wealth.
Off of the taxpayers' dollars. Well, here's what's interesting about what we were talking about neighborhood choice. So typically, Murray Duggins is the builder that does these projects. The company that is proposed to build the project on Catalyst Site 1, from what I understand, is allegedly the son-in-law of Murray Duggins. They are not working on this project jointly for whatever reason, but this son-in-law has the experience and all of the capacity to be able to now go and do what people in our community, and I'm gonna throw a name out because I remember specifically when I ran for office in 2017, I spoke with somebody who was in community development in our community, and he was articulating to me, I'm not going to throw his name out, but he was articulating to me that he was having a hard time getting his foot in this door. Now, for reference, he has been in the building space for, I know, at least since 2017. So that's at least 8 years. At this point, he had completed a project in a neighboring community and had received grant funding. You know who I'm talking about, had received grant funding to do so, but still could not get his foot in the door to qualify for these projects, because you got to partner with somebody who's already doing it. And if you, in order to qualify, and if you are the person that's doing it, you're not going to build capacity for other people to come in and take your money away from you. If you've got this process on lock, you're going to keep this process on lock until you can't anymore. Well, for whatever reason, I think it's JBS. I think that's the builder. I might be saying that wrong, but whatever this new builder's name is
JBS.
that's on the scene that wants to build on Cat Site 1 is connected to Murray Duggins. Like I said, allegedly their family is the son-in-law. He has worked with him on these other projects, so he's in. This is also the person who, Mr. Floyd, you explain that part because you know that more clearly than me when it comes to neighborhood choice, how that was rolling.
Well, see, what happened was that Fayetteville State was supposed to look at that project, and then also the city also bought that particular area, for economic development. Okay, to put something there, a gateway into the Murchison Road corridor
Well,
as
before
it
you talk
regoes to.
about that, Mr. Floyd, tell me, what was JBS's involvement in the neighborhood choice conversation?
Well, it's my understanding that he was part of that team. What I mean by team, a group of people that was seeking this grant, and this grant would provide some assistance as it relates to rebuilding. I think it's the road, whatever the housing area that's closer to
And the
Hart.
reason being because the neighborhood choice program was about redeveloping some housing
Yes,
projects along
yes.
the Murchison Road corridor. And because of that, you bring in, from the beginning, you have that person that you know or like believe is likely to get the contract should this move forward. You bring them in from the beginning, from the inception, so that they can influence and be influenced by the conversation.
Well, Tish, and then too, it was also too, it was Elliott Circle as the second part of that project. Okay. So having looked at all of that, and then if we again Fayetteville State involvement, and they did a memorandum of understanding, and they released themselves from that project. That was in somewhere around September. Okay, so in between that particular point in time, staff may have or may not met with the person JBS that's involved into this project. But but the staff called the community individuals that was involved in this relationship for 2 years. They called them on Thursday before, and expressed to them that they were going to present this idea to the city council on Monday. And this committee said, I thought that we were going to address this as affordable housing to help build generational wealth for
And
individuals.
apartments don't do that because there's
It
no
don't do that.
ownership in apartments. The only person that an apartment builds generational wealth for is the owner of the apartment,
Well,
the owner
see,
of the apartment complex. And it would almost, what would be an interesting dynamic, Mr. Floyd? It
yes,
would be
it does.
interesting if somebody was floating the idea of building low income units, and then in 15 years, when they're able to become market rate, actually selling them as condominiums. That would be an interesting concept, because
Yeah,
then what you're doing is giving the population that's living in these units an opportunity to get themselves together. You got 15 years to get your crap together if you're living in this place. And then in 15 years, when this becomes market rate, we can sell it to you, can actually buy your unit.
but
But that'll
teaching
never
one thing,
happen. That'll never
but
happen
teach,
because that's not the setup of our community. And we don't
teach.
have forward thinking leaders that think about stuff like
Well,
that. So that'll never happen.
well, let
Because
me
y'all didn't
say,
elect Tisha S. Waddell for mayor. That'll never happen.
well, let me say is that there are certain buzzwords that you have to look at as these projects begin to come through in response to what you just said. That
Hmm.
after the term of the contract, uh, after the term and the things are paid off, they can convert it then to market rate. But one thing that this project has that the other projects does not have, the word green space. Okay. Green space means that it is looked for down as people they can walk their dogs, they can read books, they got trees, they can have all of these things. So at the end of this contract or end of this term, whatever you want to call it, you know, those individuals that are in these 84 units can be asked to leave because we've already from the building stage, if it's 15 years, we've already from the building stage has built in everything that we need to do this and release this property at property value. But the point that I'm saying to you is that you had these individuals that you had a relationship with for 2 years, that you called them the day before you present this to the city council. So, do you think for 1 minute that I'm going to sit down and have an honest conversation with you going forward? Because you have not communicated with me in 4 months while you put together this package to present to the city council. And
Yeah.
you give
Uh,
me,
we we got a
I
question,
can't,
Mr. Floyd, and I think it's worth answering. I think it's worth answering. So the question is, why is home ownership the gold standard for building generational wealth? In today's economy, flexibility of movement is important. Buying and selling a home is expensive. I want to answer that very succinctly. When you look at home ownership, yes, the cost for entry is high, and that's deliberate. That is deliberate because when you own a home, you have an asset that tends to continue to increase in value, that you can borrow against, that you can leverage for to handle other things in your life. As an example, as a homeowner, if I chose to want to send my children to college, I and pay for it, because I did choose to send them to college. But if I choose to send them and pay for it, I can take a home that I purchased in um, perfect example. A home that I purchased in 2013 has increased in value by at least $80,000. If I wanted to give my children $40,000 with no strings attached, I can take the equity out of that property, give them that money, and then instead of having to feel like I'm carrying debt for the rest of my life, I can do what a lot of other very, very intelligent people with these properties do, which is turn around and sell it, and I'm free and clear of the debt. So I've used the property to leverage it as an asset to build other areas of my life. That's one of the reasons that people look at home ownership as the gold standard in building generational wealth, because the asset continues to improve in price. Many properties don't just tank under what you purchase them for unless you just really buy a dud. So the vast majority of people, it's not about living in the house or like you've got this wonderful house. It's about you have an asset that appreciates in value that you can borrow against if you need to. So you essentially become the equivalent of your own bank, which is how you build wealth. When you can finance your own stuff and you don't have to be dependent upon somebody else to finance that for you, that's where that comes from.
or
But again,
or
the barrier to entry is high, but that is deliberate.
okay, but we have put individuals in a position to build generational wealth. Now,
Absolutely. Off of the
I'm,
tax dollar. Off of the
I,
tax dollar.
that's my point. That's my point. I'm expressing is that for 4 months, this individual worked with the developer. Now, remind you now, the property of which not that the city have to put it up for bids. I think of like
Mhm.
$545,000. So if they paid the city the fair market value, the city indicated, and the city does not put it up for bid, or did the city express the interest broadly that they were looking for someone and that they would assist them in this process? Okay. Now, having said that, now you buy the land for that price.
Mhm.
You get over $2 million for being the developer. Then you turn back around and pay the $545,000 for the land. So you have a profit of what? $1.5 million. Okay.
Mhm.
Then you turn back around and you know who managed the project?
They do. So they're bringing in the yeah, they do.
Okay.
Right. They do. But Mr. Floyd, that's and but let me say
Okay.
this. I'm not knocking that. What I'm
I'm not
knocking is
knocking it to you.
and this is a failure even at the level of the General Assembly that needs to be addressed because the entry and the barrier to entry into development, even if you have experience, is so high that it keeps the vast majority of people from being able to do this. But again, it's by design. Now, Mr. Floyd, let me say this. We could talk about this all day, but we do have a couple of other things that we wanted to hit. So go ahead and you make your last point, then I'm
Okay.
gonna shut up and we'll come
My
back to this.
my last my last point, Tish, is that this is staff working with the vendor and not looking at the relationship that it had with the community for 2 years. And
Because the
then you turn,
community also probably had an expectation. I said I was gonna shut up, but the community also probably had an expectation that there would be some benefit to the community other than just a nicer
well,
housing
well, they
project.
thought, no,
Like
no,
that
I
maybe
mean,
they'd be
no,
able
no,
to be
no, no,
involved
no,
with the
no, 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 no.
redevelopment.
No, they thought that there would be a shared communication. Okay.
Right.
But the communication was not shared until the last minute. Okay.
Mhm.
And so you just didn't put that together on Thursday when you called those individuals to share that. And then again, the council ought to ask the question, provide us with the documentation when this process started.
Right.
Okay. And that way that you can see the players
But
that was
Mr. Floyd,
involved.
no, 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 no.
No,
Let me tell
no,
you why
I'm just
not.
saying.
Because let me tell you why not. Because the council already knows. Because see, the council is receiving the campaign contributions from these. Y'all wonder why the developers and the builders are the big contributors. This is why, because they make so much money off of government contracts that it behooves them to have relationships with these people. If you recall, 90+% of one of the candidates' campaign contributions, I think City View Today said all of their campaign contributions came from people in this field. That's deliberate. That's intentional. That's not accidental. There's a reason for that. We need to understand what the
Accessibility,
reason is.
Chief.
Absolutely, but
Accessibility.
but for what purpose? And if we can understand that, then
Accessibility.
we begin to understand how to navigate this system. Because again, this is not an indictment. This is
Accessibility, Chief.
just an explanation. Absolutely, Mr. Floyd. Now let me ask you this in terms of accessibility. How accessible is the MLK committee? Because we got another email about the MLK committee, just sort of trying to understand how it functions. And I know before you've compared them to the city council and the city staff. So which element would be city staff? Which element would be city council? Where the MLK committee and what's the other word?
What the committee and the board of directors?
What? Who's the board of directors? Is that the city council?
Yes, that's the city council.
And the
The
committee is the staff.
it's the staff that carry out the projects for the board of directors
So,
and report that to the board of directors. So as the board of directors meet, they can include this in their annual report, so when they can present this presentation. Okay,
so should there be
broadly.
some level of correspondence? There has to be a level of correspondence between the board of directors and the committee. So the board of directors should be getting together. You correct me if I'm wrong. The board of directors should be getting together and they should be coming up with different projects or different mechanisms that they want to see deployed through the committee. Is that accurate?
That's one way to look at it.
So then they're going to give those marching orders over to the committee, and then the committee should be responsible for executing the plans and the projects that have been provided to them by the board of directors.
That is the idea, but the committee cannot function unless it has some, as city council make the budget,
Hmm.
that provides the staff the opportunity, the ability to operate and carry out the functions and and their mission. But the board of directors, there's a question mark, and I want to
Hmm.
thank the city and the county for meeting with Stanley Ford, who is the director, and giving him uh, what we call in our community the RIDE Act. Okay,
Hmm.
so but before it has been controlled only by one person, and that is Stanley Ford.
Okay.
Stanley Ford. The chairperson does not have access to information in order of the committee to carry out these projects, which is up under the bylaws, which they are responsible for. They don't have access to the mailbox. They don't have access to anything. The chair, the we're supposed to have a treasurer. The name that they use is a financial secretary and not the treasurer. The director will get checks from the treasurer and then therefore pay the vendors. So that there is totally miscommunication, and it's just totally frustrating.
Well,
I
Mr.
was
Floyd,
on
we're
the
not the only ones frustrated because apparently, according to a report by City View Today, because the annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Parade in downtown, now in its 32nd year, has been postponed, we are hearing committee members offering conflicting explanations of why. So, a press release issued by committee member Charlisa Davis cited unspecified safety issues and said that the decision was made out of an abundance of caution. However, FPD said Fayetteville Police Department said it had not been alerted to any safety concerns. Committee chair Stanley Ford said there was no threat, but declined to clarify further. This is interesting because this is committee chair, committee member. So this would be like mayor versus, because the mayor is the chair of the city council versus a count of council member. So a council member gets out, makes a statement, and then the mayor comes back and says, that's not true. We've seen that. We're seeing that show up now here in the MLK committee. Other committee leaders offered different explanations altogether. Treasurer Ellison said the issue was logistical, insufficient time and capacity to organize the parade after the departure of former lead planner. Meanwhile, the committee president, Twana Branch, all of these are committee members, says she had no knowledge of the postponement decision or the press release, stating the committee was blindsided. Now, Mr. Floyd, nonprofits, especially those who steward public dollars, like the tax dollars that we are talking about, require clear decision making. And this situation suggests unclear roles and weak internal controls. A press release citing safety concerns carries serious implications, and issuing one without consensus or substantiation risks credibility of the committee. Large downtown events require permits, police coordination, and logistics planning. Confusion at the organization level complicates city support and public trust. These conflicting statements are raising one basic question: who can speak for the organization? Another simple question that should be answered is, who authorizes the cancellations? Another question that needs to be answered is, who controls the official communication channels? And the biggest question of all that we have been asking that still deserves to be answered is, how are the resources being utilized? Now, Mr.
That's the
Floyd,
point. That's the point, Teach, that people have asked. And you hear in every election campaign, transparency and accountability. Okay, you hear that. Now, the the committee overall received $7.5 million to do this project. 2.5 million from the state, that the state office of budget and management, and we talked about this before, have to receive that quarter report. And if you go back and look at that report, you will see that there's no dollar signs in there. Okay, and I just received yesterday the 23rd Yellow Book report from the office of budget
mhm.
yeah, and management. But what I'm
And the
saying
Yellow
that
Book report essentially is the book of nonprofits and tells you how they perform and function, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
you
it gives
see,
you sort of a ranking of the nonprofits, that Yellow
mhm,
Book report.
you see, so that is one thing. And then last Friday, a council person, DJ Hare, called them together, and they met in the county and the city, indicated that they was not going, they was looking at withholding funds from the organization until such
Okay.
information is is provided. But in today's city view, Stanley mentioned a lot of things, and one person called. Uh, in the conversation, he told the members of that meeting on Friday that he could not produce the spreadsheet, which is public money,
Mhm.
okay, that it had some confidential information on it, on a
Mhm.
public spreadsheet now.
Right.
So I'm just saying to you, it doesn't make sense. Then he come back, and one person said that it's public record. One person said that's a lie, an outright lie, and the other statement that Mr. Ford made, he made the statement that former Commissioner Evans and myself uh, moved himself away from the committee because we wanted consultant fee. So let me say this
Mr.
to you,
Floyd, how
T.
long have you been involved with the MLK committee?
About 4 decades.
So about
4 decades.
over 40 years. Over 40 years of your public service has been given to the
Yes.
MLK committee. So that means that you've got a lot of institutional knowledge about this organization.
Yes. I mean,
Have you ever taken consultant fees from the MLK committee in your 40 years?
no, 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 no,
Have
no.
you ever donated to the MLK committee over your 40 years?
Every time they have a programming project that I receive communication, I participate in.
Have you ever expected top billing for that donation or expected any
No,
sort of
never,
compensation
never.
for your donation?
If
So,
you
Mr.
look at,
Floyd, where is he coming up with that from?
well, when people have finally begin to get some traction, towards getting some response and getting the committee back on track to complete the spiral. Then you start making statements in which that statement, after we leave the air today, I'm going to speak with a person and see what my legal rights are when you say with no documentation that I wanted to get consultancy.
Yeah,
But let me
because that's
share
very
this with you.
disparaging. It's as if saying that you're only holding them accountable because they wouldn't pay you to hush.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so when you look at it, T, if you look at what we have here in the state of North Carolina as it relates to the Martin Luther King, it was myself meeting with Senator Tony Rand and Senator Laura Taylor at that time to get the state to pass it as a holiday, the city council as a holiday, the county board of commissioners as a holiday, the school system as a holiday, a Martin Luther King freeway, and a Martin Luther King scholarship that's been in existence for over 50 years. What do I want consultant fee? What do I want consultant fee? But then again, that's the way that person has operated through intimidation. So finally, the organization can begin to move forward because of the pressure that government is now placing. But please bear in mind, there was also asked that the state auditor look at the expenditures of the committee, along with a
He's got
cease
his
and desist
he's
order.
got he's got his hands full. That state auditor has his hands full, Mr. Floyd.
But I mean, but that's state money.
You
So
see what happened
now,
in you see what happened in is it in Cary? You see what
and
happened in
carry,
Cary?
yeah,
Hmm.
you see, so now this may be a flag now to the state auditor to look at this. But the state auditor said that the Office of Budget and Management said that he was in compliance, which he was in language, but it did not express the way the dollars were sent. You can ask any committee member on the street today, can they tell you how much money has been spent and where it has gone? The only
Yeah.
way the dollar sign that we got from this report was one that was in the Fayetteville Press that I think 300 plus $1,000 has been spent.
Yeah.
But if you look at the 2023 Yellow Book report, it's unique.
I need to go back to something because I need to make sure that I close the loop on this. Mr. Floyd, the reason that access matters to your elected body is because when you can access elected officials at multiple levels of electedness, so when you can access your municipal officials and you can at the same time access your county officials, and at the same time you can access your state officials, and then you have access to, because when you're making multi millions of dollars, you also have access at a national level. When you can access elected officials at all of those levels, you can effectively influence policy. And when you can influence policy, you can create systems that benefit your movement. And when you can do that, you create structure that exists like what we see right now, where you have developers who can come into a situation and have guaranteed, I'm going to use this word because it's going to touch our next subject, but have qualified immunity because they have built in a system that protects them and prevents anybody else from encroaching or competing with them in the space that they have carved out through the access that they have afforded themselves at each of these elected offices. Now, when
But
we talk, go ahead, Mr. Floyd.
but but T, it comes from management and staff. Okay, it comes from management and staff. That means that the staff,
Well, the policies have to first exist that give you room to be able to then push on management and staff to adhere to these policies that you have influenced.
well, I agree with you on that. But when I look at people have trust in government and people that the government sends on their behalf to establish a level of communication. But that level of communication sometimes has an adverse effect on the other part of the group that communicate, if you understand. What you
I
might
understand
call
what you're
that you
saying.
see a policy in my lab and my line of work. We have what you say that there is a policy. The policy appears to be neutral when you look at it, but it has an adverse effect on a certain group of people. And that's
Because of its
what this is.
application.
Yeah, and that's what this is. This is what happened. Those person that had a relationship with you for 2 years, standing with you, attended your meeting to receive a grant for 2 years, and you turn back around and slap them in the face and have meetings without even letting them know that this is what I'm looking at because you know, it's you at this particular
I think
point.
when ground breaks on the 7-Eleven at the other end of Rose Hill Road, I think we'll revisit the idea of how involved um, our governing body is in really listening to and communicating with their
Well,
constituency versus the builders and the developers. But Mr. Floyd,
I,
I have a question for you. I have a question for you because we talked about I said qualified immunity, and I want to lead into this story about the wrongful death lawsuit stemming from the 2020 killing of Army veteran Adrian Roberts by Cumberland County Sheriff Deputy Justin Evans. So apparently, um, Justin Evans argued that he was entitled to qualified immunity, a legal doctrine that can shield officers from civil liability. But the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit upheld a lower court ruling allowing the lawsuit filed by Roberts' wife, Sarah Fisher Roberts, to proceed. So the lawsuit will proceed. At the center of this dispute is whether Rogers was charging deputies with a machete, as officers claim, or retreating, supported according to the court by autopsy evidence showing he was shot in the back. Now, the reason that this matters procedurally is because courts cannot grant immunity when facts are disputed. Mr. Floyd, here's what I want to sort of touch on in that line. One of the questions that we were asked as I was running for office is whether or not we supported qualified immunity, because there is this narrative that qualified immunity means anything you do in the course of your job of the dispatching of your duties qualifies you for immunity no matter what. This exemplifies the fact that that is not an accurate understanding of qualified immunity, because very clearly we see here that it is not the material facts cannot be disputed. If they're disputed, qualified immunity does not apply. And so now we are seeing this sheriff's deputy facing this lawsuit, and this is going to be interesting. This is going to be interesting. Roberts was a 37-year-old veteran receiving VA care for severe mental health conditions. Um, and this is going to be very interesting. Mr. Floyd, what do you think when we talk about qualified immunity and the protection of public servants? Do you think that it too often prevents full accountability, or are we seeing here that there is a check and a balance?
at this particular point, there's a check and a balance, you know, as it relates to the process. Okay. But we, the taxpayer, are going to bear the expenses one way or the other, either through legal fees or settlement. We are going to bear the expense.
Yeah, because these are the people that work under the auspice of our tax dollar. They work under the people that we've hired. This sheriff worked under the sheriff that we hired. They receive training under the people that we've hired, which is always something that we should be thinking about when we go into the voting booth to hire the next person in these positions. Now, Mr. Floyd, one other thing that I want to talk about before we get out of here today, and that's this landfill situation. So we got a lot of people that are living on alert because these methane alarms keep sounding. So again, according by reporting this week in City View Today, repeated methane alarms at a home on Leslie Drive have intensified concerns for residents living near the Cliffdale landfill. One household reported 3 alarm activations after the NCDEQ installed methane monitors and soil gas probes at 37 nearby properties. These alarms are triggered when indoor methane reaches 10% of the lower explosive limit. Remember, this was necessary because they have now found that these gases are leaching out and into the surrounding areas, and there is a potential for explosion. So these people are probably freaking out just a little bit. Fire crews confirmed that the home does not use natural gas or propane and found no internal source, which means that this is an accurate alarm, more than likely. NCDEQ later installed a vapor intrusion mitigation system at the residence and says monitoring indicates the home is now safe to occupy, though residents remain uneasy. Mr. Floyd, this matters because the Cliffdale site is a PRLF, pre regulatory landfill, which is an older landfill built without modern liners or standards, placing it under state investigation for gas migration. Emails show that the Fayetteville Fire Department was not initially informed that methane alarms had been installed, complicating early response. Prior testing exceeded state cancer risk thresholds for indoor air. So, this is a quality of life and a health issue for the people in this area. In some cases, these levels approached explosion hazards. Raising the bar for mitigation and disclosure. NCDEQ plans a larger vapor collection system along the boundary of the landfill on the county property with phased installation through summer after pilot testing. Mr. Floyd, what disclosure and coordination standards should apply when state agencies install alarms? And do you think that counties should address long neglected pre-regulatory landfills to prevent repeat crises? And do you think we're going to see some issues with the Ant Street landfill at
Well,
some
well,
point like
Tish,
this?
the answer is that the answer is yes. The other part of it is once you cross Ramsey Street, once you cross Ramsey Street, you're in I refer to that as an environmental racism zone
Right.
because you have the Ann Street landfill that the Ann Street landfill wants to buy the city old landfill
Yeah.
and repackage that to give it a lifespan to 2049.
Yeah.
But if you go right up the street from there, you got Fay Block Company. And if
Right.
you go right up the street further, you have the Hawthorne water plant, which a textile company left some years ago. That water is seeking, that towards the water plant. Now, if you go just a little bit further up on across the river, you have uh, I think an AI plant. I mean, uh,
Mhm.
facility that they want to build that runs off natural gas, which many cities said that it has that it's polluting their community. So,
Mhm.
so we are going to have a problem. Manors down in Grays Creek, we're going to have a problem in this community as it relates to these kinds of programs and projects. I call them programs and projects because they've
Yeah.
already taken place. And unfortunately, I can remember running in the General Assembly when we had landfills that once they reach a certain point because of water was that they use form in order to keep it down, to keep it from running over. And they ran 6 campaign ads on me because I said that at that time that the form will keep the water from running over and spilling out of the contained area, then so be it. But that was my
Yeah.
party, because my party, you know, they are very unique. In fact, you didn't ask for this, but my party now is the third ranking party because the Republican outnumber the Democrats and
And the
they lead the
unaffiliates
Republic.
outnumber the both of you.
So
What do you
so
want to
that
leave our people
you
with, Mr. Floyd? Because I got to get out of here. What you want to leave our
okay.
people with?
Look at the Martin Luther King Committee and provide support and strong leadership so that it can move forward and see the funding that the city and county has proposed for them through change in leadership, so that this project that started many years ago can move forward.
Hmm.
That's my plea to the community.
Okay, and I want to remind. I just want to. I'm gonna thank you, Holy Spirit. I'm just gonna tell y'all I love y'all, and we're gonna leave it at that. Because sometimes you just need to be reminded that somebody loves you. So, Upzone audience, I love y'all. I thank y'all for tuning in. I appreciate you making time to be with us week after week. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out again. If you know that there's something coming up in the community and you want us to share it, let us know. I'm not opposed to sharing. Mr. Floyd is always the one with the announcements, but if you send me something, I'll slide it to him so he can let the community know. Please like, share, subscribe, follow. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend because we're doing something I think that is benefiting our community. We are trying to make understanding politics simple, and we're doing it in a way that's fun and lighthearted. And we invite you to join us. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and we will join you on the next episode.